Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of ESG Matters with Risk Insights. I'm your host today again, Anushka Bogdanov, and thank you for joining me for this week. As I promised last week, that I'm going to have a very, very cool, impactful leader that is going to be joining me for today's podcast, and that is Mr. Martin Sweet. And he's going to be talking about a subject matter that is very, very close to ESG and very close to South Africa, and a phenomena that is quite negative in the world that impacts ESG and human right violations, and that is gender based violence. And it's actually quite sad to see that this phenomena is increasing every day in all parts of the world, irrespective of social classes. And this pandemic has been classified by the United Nations as one of the largest and most prevalent human right violations. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about Martin Sweet. Hi, Martin.
Hi, Anushka. It's really wonderful to be talking to you again. And it's really an honor and a privilege to have an association with Anushka and Risk Insight.
Thank you, Martin. Martin is one of those impactful leaders that he keeps himself so closed, and I thought it's important for a subject matter that's really important for me, which is ESG and risk insights. And he's a seasoned professional with over 40 years of corporate executive experience. And Martin found his calling at the age of 52 when he stopped all his endeavors of climbing up that corporate ladder and setting up his own company called Primestars, where he focused so much on leading youth development in South Africa. Primestars is 19 years old. Next year, it will celebrate its milestone of 20 years. Martin's been recognized for his role in the conceptualization of the SALC Take a Girl Child to Work, and he introduced so many groundbreaking social impact programs. I hold Martin very dear to my heart because of the impact he's creating for South Africa. And last year, this legacy of his continues. And he has launched one of South Africa's leading boy child programs titled What About the Boys? So, Martin, welcome to ESG Matters with Risk Insights. And you've led so many impactful projects across the country. Can you tell me a little bit about these projects and your role within them? And can you share this with our listeners?
Well, thank you once again, Anushka. Look, what we do as a youth development organization is we look at the environment and we see what's needed. And 12 years ago, we launched a matric maths and science program
Mm-hmm.
where we started with 167 kids. Today, we have 30,000 seats in cinemas. We go into rural areas, and our maths
Mm-hmm.
program won the AmCham Award for the best maths program in South Africa. More so, we increased marks by up to 16% in the areas and with the kids that we interact with. The
Wow.
Minister of Basic Education calls our program one of the best public sector programs in the private sector. And
Mm-hmm.
all in all, we're making a huge difference for the fourth industrial revolution, where STEM subjects are so important. We also run an entrepreneurship program called Step
Mm-hmm.
Up to a Startup, which I'm proud to say Risk Insights was involved with. And there we create hundreds of
Mm-hmm.
young entrepreneurs in townships. This year and last year, we worked on ESG and climate change and raising young entrepreneurs for a changing climate. And then, of course, the program that you're talking to me about today. And really, my point is without showing boys, it's called What About the Boys? Without showing
Mm-hmm.
boys how to love, how will they become loving men?
Mm-hmm.
And because of the circumstances in our country, we felt it necessary to begin to redefine, reinvent masculinity.
Thank you very much, Martin, for that, and very insightful in terms of what you've been doing in terms of impact leadership. And that's something that is absolutely crucial for South Africa, and especially where we are. Just to stop on a step up to a startup, it was such an amazing experience to have Martin and Primestar team be chosen for that project with the World Economic Forum as a new champion project in terms of impact for South Africa. But coming back to gender based violence and the program of What About the Boys and the impact that it is creating for South Africa, because it's really sad to see that 1 in 4 women that are aged between 15 and 24 in the world would and if they are in a relationship would have experienced some level of gender based violence by their partners. Can you tell me a little bit more about your inspiration and why did you set up this program called What About the Boys? Because I'm passionate about this because of ESG and what it serves for inequality and creating equality in terms of gender. Martin, what inspiration did you have in terms of setting up such an impactful project for South Africa?
Now, Anushka, you know that at the moment South Africa is an unsafe country for women.
Mm-hmm.
Our femicide rate is 5 times higher than the global average. And it's just unacceptable what is happening. Redirecting focus to the development of boys
Mm-hmm.
become crucial as statistics suggest that boys are struggling
Mm-hmm.
and need more support and guidance than ever before. They continue to drop out of school, get lower grades, develop addictions to substance abuse and pornography, drive recklessly,
Mm-hmm.
engage in unsafe sex, are diagnosed as emotionally disturbed, commit suicide more often than girls, get into fights more often. School stabbings, what do they have in common? Knives, yes, but also boys.
Mm-hmm.
Girls aren't doing stabbing. So the hard truth is that many of our boys grow up to be abusers, which is why it's critical that there needs to be a particular focus on young men if we are to make any meaningful headway in tackling gender based violence and femicide in the country.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the effects of traditionally defined masculinity and the societal expectation it places on boys presents itself in how we raise boys differently from girls.
Sure.
It starts when we equate emotion with weakness and direct boys to display strength no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
They have to be tough, have to be strong, have to be courageous, dominating, no pain, no emotion, with the exception of anger and aggression, and definitely no fear. That men are in charge, which means women are not.
Mm-hmm.
That men are superior, women are inferior. That men are strong, women are weak. That women are of less value, property of men, and objects, particularly sexual objects.
Mm-hmm.
Now, growing up, boys are taught idioms such as don't be sissies, man up, and that's so gay.
Mm-hmm.
And this has led to a culture in which men have learned to hide their feelings and anxieties and that they need to constantly prove their masculinity. Boys learn they're expected to play with trucks, tools, weapons, and other masculine toys. And you know, Anushka, girls stick to dolls, dress up,
Mm-hmm.
and play
Mm-hmm.
house. And those boys who deviate from the expected behavior will find themselves the subject of ridicule. Traditional masculinity ideology is more comfortable with the image of a boy playing with a toy gun rather than a toy doll because it's more comfortable seeing a boy hold something that kills rather than something that cries.
Mm-hmm.
So we live in a culture that teaches boys stoicism over authenticity, dominance over empathy, aggression over assertiveness, and that if they don't follow the script, someone will notice and take their man card away. Boys are taught not to seek help, ask for advice, or even ask for directions, because asking for help would suggest a lack of leadership instead of being an acute sign of it. Their behavior is highly monitored,
Mm-hmm.
their gender constantly veiled for any sign of misstep or mistake. They learn that their connection to mothers will emasculate them,
Mm-hmm.
turn them into mama's boy. They become fluent in emotional self censorship and anesthetized to feelings to avoid getting caught having any.
So,
The love
Martin,
is stripped away.
you're saying it's very much a psychological issue, right? So much of it is psychology, of how we have grown our men and our boys in our country, right? And but it goes beyond that in terms of the psychology. So your programs are very much aimed to build stronger children and repair broken men, right?
Well, absolutely, because the conventional set of rules for being a man is outdated and unhealthy.
Mm-hmm.
It steers men towards isolation, sexism, and sometimes violence. And basically, it deadens their soul. And with this in mind, we set out to address the problem at its root, which
Right.
is the norms and the conventional expectations of manhood that they grow up with.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you may remember a social reformer, writer, and statesman, Frederick Douglass, said, "It's easier to build strong children than to repair broken men." And it's this reason that What About the Boys was designed
Ah.
to help boys redefine masculinity and stop GBV by teaching them to share emotions in healthy ways,
Mm-hmm.
accept and connect with others,
Mm-hmm.
manage emotional triggers, gain skills for economic traction, stand up and speak out against bullying and inequality, and break free from rigid stereotypes. Now, Anushka, it has been said,
Mm-hmm.
if we educate our sons, we won't have to protect our daughters. We won't have to teach them how to defend themselves. And
Amazing.
that's really the
Amazing, Martin. Amazing program. And I think all us mothers that are out there that have girl childs, it's really important. This program that Martin brings to the fore and to educate and to support women, to support boys, support men in terms of becoming better societal figures, to eradicate gender equality and a phenomena through gender inequality, that is gender based violence, is absolutely critical for societal development. So, Martin, I really, really am so impressed with this program, and I think we all should be supporting this and growing. What about the boys, to help our men and our boys become better social citizens and citizens of this country. You are just yeah, you amaze me. You amaze me in terms of the impact leadership and what you provide South Africa with your programs. Martin, amazing, and congratulations. Um,
Well, thank you, Anushka, because basically, without showing boys how to love, how will they become loving men?
Absolutely, absolutely, and we very often we don't look at the root causes of problems, right? We start looking at gender equality, and then we start looking at gender pay gaps, and we look at gender positions in companies and ceilings. But these things start off with the psychological issue from a very young age. And this program that you've created, will solve for generations to come, and it becomes impactful for ESG. So, and of course, ESG matters to Risk Insight. So, thank you for sharing that with us, Martin. You've had a program a couple days ago, in fact, right? And it was about maths and science and education, and you have several supporters for your Maths and Science Foundation. Who are the companies and your main supporters for What About the Boys? Are they companies that have been supporting you in South Africa?
Yes. Well, let's start with What About the Boys. We've got Sariti, a mining house. We've got Sasol. We've got McDonald's. We've got the Ford Foundation.
Wow.
We've got Cheetah,
Mm-hmm.
Chieta,
Mm-hmm.
Chieta, which is the chemical industry, CETA. We've got APSA. We've got Markham.
Mm-hmm.
We've got Smoller, Old Mutual.
Mm-hmm.
We've got the Nelson Mandela Children's Fund, EOH,
Mm-hmm.
SPAR, among many others. And really, the big idea there is that uh, companies need to play a social role in society. And by doing this, they're creating a better and more structured place where they can save business in
Mm-hmm.
this country. Now, we have different companies who support different projects.
Right.
In our maths and science, for instance, we have Liberty, we
Mm-hmm.
have Protea Chemicals, Omnia, Standard Bank, Sasria, PPS, Bidvest, Cell C, AECI. So really what we
Wow.
do, SPAR and Anglo American, what we do is we try and source funding from other businesses.
Mm-hmm.
And what businesses get in return is firstly and most importantly the impact of the programs.
Right.
But what they also get is socio-economic development points
Mm-hmm.
or enterprise development points.
Mm-hmm.
So that's BEE accreditation. Or if they support the foundation, they can get an 18A tax deduction.
Right. Martin, you should be using ESG as a very good lever for you as well. And I think companies should be using this as an ESG lever because remember, ESG is about both double materiality and triple materiality, right? So, double materiality, what companies are doing within their companies and the well being of their employees. But your triple materiality is all about what companies are doing for societal development. So, this is absolutely amazing to see the level of support that you have from South Africa and the private sector and government for this program. And ultimately, not only are you getting the B points, the 18A certificate, but what you're getting is that from a disclosure perspective, companies are starting to show these type of programs that will impact on the ESG disclosure and the societal impact they are creating. So this is a really good program for companies to invest in and to ensure that that impact in terms of gender equality from a young age for men and boys to be supported through Martin's program. What about the boys? I love it, Martin. So you can count Risk Insights in.
Well, that's wonderful. And just to touch on your point about ESG, our program Step Up to a Green Startup, which your organization actually supports with funding and the wonderful support you give us, where we're able to bounce important issues off you and you help us structure things. We really are our Step Up to a Green Startup is the only South African program that has an element of E and S
Mm-hmm.
of the ESG. Firstly, the E is the environment, and the S is creating jobs, focusing on
Yeah.
unemployment. So, what this program does is it raises young entrepreneurs for a changing climate. It helps them start businesses that can impact the process of looking after our planet and
Mm-hmm.
its people.
Martin, that's amazing
And
again.
that
Impact, impact, impact. I love it. I remember last year attending the Step Up to a Green Startup project that you also launched with Nedbank. So it was just an amazing event. So for those of you that don't know Martin Sweet and the programs that he's running for impact for leadership, impact for South Africa, impact for youth, impact for entrepreneurs, impact for climate change, impact for social entrepreneurs, impact for maths and science for young people and youth. I love it, and it's great to see programs like this and the innovation that you've created. So, Martin, all of these programs are great, and you are doing some over 4 decades. You've been just creating impact, and um, do you have a KPI for what about the boys in terms of what do you want to achieve at the end of the day? So very quickly, Martin, if you can just kind of tell me, what do you see? This footprint that you want to leave behind for what about the boys?
Well, let me tell you, last year was the pilot project. We reached over 15,000 boys, exposing them to relatable storytelling through movies,
Mm-hmm.
coupled with an informative illustrated Good Men Guide workbook mentorship,
Mm-hmm.
and a free online platform called Primestars Digital. Now, vital to the program's success is the qualitative and quantitative data gathered before and after implementation.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the sources for the data included a scenario based pre assessment and post assessment questionnaire, as well as feedback from mentors and focus groups with the boys, teachers, and others. So, what about the boys has provided critical insight into boys' understanding and attitudes to a range of topics around gender and masculinity. Now, let me illustrate how we have changed mindsets with the right guidance and mentorship. So, by way of example, Anushka,
Mm-hmm.
as a pre assessment data, 16% of the boys agreed with the statement that there are times when a woman deserves to be beaten. 30% agreed with the statement that it's
Gee.
okay for a man to hit his girlfriend or wife if she won't have sex with him. And
Ooh la la.
74% agreed with the statement that a man can have sex with his wife whenever he wants.
Mm.
Now, those are shocking stats, but post assessment conducted after the program with the same learners showed that these percentages had dropped dramatically. The change in
Mm-hmm.
responses indicate a marked influence on learners' outlook in many areas focused on by the program. So
Wow.
we're very happy with the change and impact that this program have.
Data, data, data. It's empirical evidence, right? So Risk Insights is a data science company, and so I'm really looking forward to sharing your stats when you're ready next year this time to show the impact of these really really worrying data in terms of that you've just shared with us to and our listeners. So I would like to see how those numbers are coming down, and your KPIs that you've set for your company to improve society and improve men and boys, and to create impact and remove and reduce gender-based violence in South Africa, take a front seat for all of us. So thank you for sharing that, Martin. Just the last thing, and I don't want to take up any more of your time. I know you've got to go out there and continue creating impact. What can you leave our listeners, with? And is there any help that you need from our listeners? And how can we support your program?
Well, firstly, Anushka, you already do. It's wonderful collaborating with Risk Insights. You are a mover and a shaker and a wonderful human being that makes this country work
Oh,
and will
Martin,
continue to impact this country. So, firstly, from you, I want nothing more than what you're doing.
thank
But
you.
what about the boys is growing as a key contributor to Pillar 2 prevention of
Hmm.
the GBV National Strategic Plan. And Anushka, it's endorsed by the presidency. In fact,
Hmm.
President
Hmm.
Cyril Ramaphosa recommended that we take this program to all schools in South Africa. And to this end, we are working to arrange a dialogue with him, with our boys in the cinema later this year. But to those who resonate with our mission, and it's important mission,
Hmm.
7 women are killed every day, 120 women are raped. We invite you, the listener, to join our movement to raise a nation of good men, good fathers, good partners, good colleagues, good managers, good lovers, good believers, good leaders, and good citizens who can embrace vulnerability, create strong relationships, and live their fullest lives, leaving the world better than the way they found it. And to do that, we
Yeah,
need
yeah.
funding to get boys to cinemas, to change their norms, to redefine masculinity, and most importantly, to give them the guidance through mentors that want to help them. If we begin, it's like, let me give you a metaphor, Anushka,
Hmm.
a cave, call it toxic masculinity. Once a man is inside that cave, you
Mhm.
can't get him out. But if you can shut off that cave to boys and young men and not allow them to go there by teaching them new norms and building a basis for a redefined masculinity that evolves as society evolves, you can really make a difference. So, what we need is funding, funding, and more funding. Thank you, Anushka.
Thank you very much, Martin. And there you have it, our listeners. Martin Schuit of Primestars, making a difference, one of the most impactful leaders that I know. So thank you very much, Martin, for sharing your views and your love for our country, for your love for creating impact. And I really, really salute you. And thank you for spending the time with our listeners. Join me next week on ESG Matters with Risk Insights, where we will be joined by impactful women to celebrate Women's Month in South Africa. Thank you again for tuning in, and ciao for now.